Welcome back to Wild Contemplations. My name is Kristin. I am one of the hosts. I am a 1-3 emotional projector, Sag Sun, Libra Moon, Pisces Rising. Cori and I are on a journey around the wheel. We are contemplating through the lens of the gene keys that are illuminated by the sun with their programming partner in the earth. And we are weaving in our experience, our lived experience, astrology, human design, just whatever is in our heart space in this present moment. So, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. And I'll hand it over to Cori.
Thanks, Kristen. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Cori. I am a 4-6 sacral manifesting generator in human design and a Cancer Sun, Virgo Moon, and Virgo Rising. And we are officially in Virgo season. The sun has moved into Virgo. We were contemplating the 29 and 30 last week, and I can't recall if I mentioned, but those are cusp keys. So they live on the cusp of Leo Aquarius and Virgo Pisces. And yeah, so they live at the first few just minutes of Virgo and Pisces at the tail end there and their sixth line. And then today we'll move into fully Virgo Pisces keys, the 59 where the sun is and the 55 where the earth is. But before we get started, we'll take 3 breaths together as we just come into this space and land here in contemplation and community. So if it feels good to soften your gaze or close your eyes, maybe bring a hand to the body. Just take 3 breaths all together. All right. So we'll do a little check-in. I'll run off the frequency bands here for last week and this week, because I think we're in the 3rd line today, maybe the 2nd line. Yeah, so last week the sun was in 29 with the frequency bands of half-heartedness, commitment, and devotion. And the earth was in 30 with the frequency bands of desire, lightness, and rapture. And this week we are contemplating the sun in 59 with the frequency bands of dishonesty, intimacy, and transparency. And earth in the 55 with the frequency bands of victimization, freedom, and freedom. So we'll see what's been happening. What's been going on with you, Kristin?
I love hearing those frequency bands from last week because I feel like I'm really in that energy. I was just telling Cori yesterday that I was laying in bed the other night, just smiling in gratitude, reflecting on everything that's, sort of moving all around me. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that I've committed to. Um, and I feel like I'm all in on all of those things. So even if it feels like the energy is dispersed a little bit, I feel like I'm very much in a space of committing to myself and moving forward. And, maybe even looking at some of the things that I've been afraid to look at, which I think is relevant to this week's 59. Um, yeah, just really in that space of taking radical responsibility for myself and choosing me over and over again. And what I realized, which was interesting, is that um, I think that over the last several years, as I've been building my business, I've really been trying to build it from this slow, intentional space. Not that I've necessarily been trying to go slow, but that I keep stepping back into this slowness and thinking that I need to be slow to be intentional. And what I realized the other day, just laying in bed, was that all the momentum, all the movement around me makes me feel alive. And it's all very intentional. I'm not haphazardly saying yes to things and engaging in things that don't matter to me. I'm choosing things that matter and do feel very intentional for me. And and I get to be exerting that energy right now and feeling good about it, even though I'm a projector and I'm told that I should not be exerting this much energy, probably. Um, but yeah, it was just an interesting shift to feel that the movement makes me feel alive and it doesn't feel like I'm in a hustle right now, which is the very thing that I was fighting against when I was stepping into that slow, intentional pace. I didn't want to be back in hustle, corporate hustle. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit of how I've been feeling. How about you?
Well, first of all, I love hearing this. And so I'm just kind of like celebrating yeah, this deep connection and devotion to what brings you alive. Um and to finding that balance between and to being able to once you get super clear on what it is you want to be putting your energy into, riding those like waves of energy and allowing it to move at the pace that feels good and brings things to life. And so yeah, I'm getting chills, so I'm excited to hear that from you and witness you share about it here with all of us. And I've also been feeling like these waves of gratitude and yeah, a lot of expansion, a lot of creative buzzing energy. Um, I also have really felt the 29 and 30 over the past week. We also talked about it in the last episode that this is where the nodes are. So we'll still like continue to feel like a bit of an emphasis here. Um, and yeah, I'm really like honoring myself for continuing to choose myself and like seeing all the ways that I really do and have created a life where I am committed and devoted to like myself and my heart's desires. Um, and especially like the deepening of that commitment that's happened in the past year. And in particular, I'm noticing it from the last like eclipse season. So in the early part of this year, like February, March time, um, just seeing the themes from then and like the deepening of that commitment over these past 6 months. And also I've been really I think I might have talked about it last time, but I've been basically like immersing myself in a couple of practices. One is a little creation that came through my field, which is like really tuning in to like the story that's unfolding in our lives in the here and now, and like just getting clear, like where do I want to be? It's very 29-30. Where do I want to be putting my energy? Does this feel like me? Is this something I picked up from the world around me? Where am I feeling like once I get clear on what I'm like plugging into and unplugging from, where do I want to be kind of stretching a bit and like pushing the edge of my comfort zone and taking a bit of like risk and challenge in going after those desires, like with a bit more of a fire, I suppose. Um, and so that's been really exciting for me. And I'm also participating in another practice um, with like Kabbalah prompts each day, moving through their like Virgo season. And one of the prompts or invitations, I suppose, has been to really like lean into being grateful for your greatest challenges. And this has like I mean, I've known this, like everything's happening for us, like I know it at this level, but I feel like it's kind of like over the past couple of weeks sunk more deeply into my being and body in this more embodied way. And so like when I get up in the morning, I'm just like really sitting with the things that even a few weeks ago, I would have felt like there's something I need to do to change this. Like, this isn't how I want it to be. I'm coming up against something here and I'm not liking it. But instead, what I'm feeling right now is like, it's here. Like, I'm loving that it's here, even though it's uncomfortable. And even though it, yeah, it's causing a bit of friction and challenge in my life. I'm really seeing it for its gift, and that's just been a huge shift in perspective for me and freeing up a lot of energy, I think, that I was giving to trying to like change, fix, or improve those things. Instead, I'm like, I can just actually let them be here and like see what they're wanting to tell me. And now that I'm speaking about this out loud, I realize that I actually come to the come to this place a lot in Virgo season. So there might be, yeah, a little message for me there with that particular archetype. But that was a long, so I'll pause there for a moment.
Yeah, I understand that moment that you speak of I've known it here. I've known it mentally, but when it really lands in your body, when that's when you experience that true embodiment, this visceral feeling like I get it now. And that can be a very frustrating space of like I know this, but I'm not implementing, I'm not integrating it, right? But I know it. I know these things. And a lot of times we can be in that space of what, but why aren't things shifting? I know this. Why isn't it shifting? And it's because the body hasn't caught up yet. And a lot of times also, I think, related to the 59, I started listening to Richard's contemplation about it. And he speaks to this, in the shadow band, the dishonesty piece. He speaks to the dilemma of it being trauma. And what I thought was so interesting was how he spoke to ancient trauma and ancient healing. And this is something, of course, that I've actually been feeling without having listened to him. I've actually been feeling that I've been navigating some ancient healing. And you've heard me reflect in the last probably couple episodes that there have been like my emotional energy has been more explosive even lately. And my tolerance is like seems lower. However, in sitting in this energy, sitting in the emotional energy move through me in these last couple of weeks, I do feel like there's ancient energy. Like it feels there's such a bigness moving through me that I know that it can't possibly be just what's happening in the current moment, right? That it's this, this series, this chord, if you will, of patterns of hurt, of pain, of emotional energy that's just being illuminated and pulled out of me. And also, we're in eclipse season too. So, like, just feeling and moving through all that feels very intentional as well. Not from the perspective of I'm trying or I'm intentionally releasing it, but it feels intentional, the timing of it moving through me. And I think I just want to comment here. I think that, as women, sometimes it can, we can lean on things like, is it my hormones? Is it like we can get into our heads about all this, like what could it be, right? Um, and I think that a big message with this week's energy that I'm feeling that I'll just put out here now is that it doesn't, like, none of the external shit matters, or what we think it is, right, matters, whether it's a situation or like whatever we're trying to blame, even though hormones isn't technically external, but it feels like out of our control, right? Um, I don't know, maybe some people would argue that, but anyways, the point being not to look for something to blame or assign it to or make meaning like, oh, it must be because of XYZ, but to really just take ownership of that feeling and the curiosity of it, and oh, what is this showing me? What is, and sometimes that could just be a release. Like, it's just showing me that it needs to come out right now. Um, so yeah, I guess I'll stop there because now I feel like I went down a little rabbit hole.
I think it's absolutely perfect. The gateway to really dive into these, because I think what they speak to as a pair is exactly what you're saying, is taking ownership for the stuff that's coming up, and to just be with it and allow it to be. And like you said, not to feel like we need to put it on anything out here, but know that it's something that we're moving through to release. And yes, it's happening at an individual level, but it's also connected to a collective release and mutation that's happening. And it's all part of us moving into a space of greater freedom, which is, I think, the kind of um, core of what we're all really looking for, in some way. It's like the base of it. So I'll just run through the frequency bands and gates and all of that good stuff real quick so we have it. So we have the sun in the 59. Again, we have frequency bands of dishonesty, intimacy, and transparency. In human design, it's the gate of sexuality, and it lives in the sacral center and reaches towards the emotional solar plexus. And then in the I Ching, it translates to dispersion. And you already used that word, or you said like the energy feels dispersed at the beginning. So I was seeing it as like seeding these creative babies all over. um, and then we have the Earth in 55 with the frequency bands of victimization, freedom, and freedom. In human design, it's the gate of spirit, and it lives in the emotional solar plexus and reaches towards the root center. And in the I Ching, it translates to abundance. And this 55 is like, it's a big transmission. If you feel called to tune into it in some way, whether in the book, I think on Spotify they even have it, or maybe even on the Gene Keys page they have where you can listen to it for free, I believe. Uh, and yeah, I think the book's on Spotify, and you can listen to the chapter. it might not be, it's not Richard's voice, but it's available there. And then in the big book, obviously, this it's a big chapter. Um, but I would highly recommend it. It speaks to the change that basically we're moving through, and on many levels. Um, and so it's in the book, the chapter is called The Dragonfly's Dream. And Kristen and I were just talking before this, but it's kind of like connecting what we're moving through as a species, humanity's like collective mutation, but this is happening at like an individual level for all of us. It's connecting it to the sort of metamorphosis of the dragonfly who begins their life as a water nymph and then actually has to come out of the water, um, and essentially die to the old self. And then from that unfurls the dragonfly. And it's very connected to what's happening in this process of like cleansing and clearing the emotional field. Each individual is playing a role in it. Each of us is carrying some collective stuff to work through um, that then kind of plugs into this greater change that's happening. So it's kind of like hard for the mind to fully comprehend because it's going to be so different from what we've experienced up until now. But it's also just something without even reading it, you know, that like you said, before you even listen to this, it's already happening. And so at least for me, like reading it and coming to these um, transmissions has been like just a remembering or even just a, oh yeah, like this is something that I'm already experiencing. Um, all right, I'll pause there.
Yeah, I really we've been obviously speaking to this transmutation in many of our episodes, and I think we've spoken about it relating to different things like shifts in leadership that we're feeling. We've been talking a lot recently about relationships, and it's interesting because right now I feel this call to really focus on the self. And when we do that, I mean, Richard, he even speaks to this a little bit, like when we approach that trauma, that healing within ourself, then only until we've addressed that can we respond to someone else neutrally. Will they no longer trigger us? Right? The things that drove us nuts before no longer will because we've now navigated the root of that, which could very well be ancestral. It could be childhood. It could be past life. It could be any of those things. And that's part of that ancient healing that I was speaking about earlier. And what's interesting about it is that there's this part of me that very much feels like we're moving into this era of the self, if you will. Like we're stepping into this, new matrix, I'll call it, of really attending to ourselves and understanding ourselves and nurturing and you know the unraveling, the untethering of the self to discover the truth of self. And yet I also feel that we're moving into this era of new collaboration, new relationships that looks different than maybe it did before. Whereas, previously and now, if you will, I feel that a lot of interactions has been in service to the other, right? It's how can I serve you? How can I please you, right? There's a lot of like people pleasing energy. out there. And Corey and I've spoken about this in past episodes, whereas in that energy, the one who comes through who's worried about themselves, who is caring about taking care of themselves, who's saying, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be over here. I want to be spending my energy here. Sometimes can be called selfish, right? In today's age. And so I feel it's interesting to kind of feel that transition of we're all moving into that space. Like we're moving away from how can I how can I serve in a way that's going to like help everyone else? And how can I serve in the best way that will help me? And wouldn't it be amazing if by me doing that I would in turn be able to help the greater, the greater world in such a bigger way. I would be able to see things differently. I would have different perspective. I would have more compassion, So while we're moving into this different era of the self and of collaboration with others. And I think that that's really worth examining in our current relationships. How do those feel? And it inspires me to stay on the path that I've been on. And I will share um that I was single for 8 years and I got into a relationship last year for the first time in 8 years. And this is a lot of something that I'm navigating very intimately because, you know, I was very focused on me for a long time. And now, I'm coming into a relationship. The societal norms and pressures of relationships now is weighing on me and how should I be showing up in this relationship? Should I be spending more time thinking about us and not me? And honestly, and I don't know what this means for me, but honestly, I feel like I need to continue to focus on me and that the only way that I can truly show up without losing myself in relationship is if I do that. If I really, you know, release those traumas, release those triggers, release the focus on the other and keep that internal so that I can be in my truest expression. Because when all that other stuff is happening, there's things I'm backing away from. I'm like, oh, this like that didn't feel good. I don't love the way that triggered me, or like, you know, I'm backing away from it. And so if I turn that focus on like, how can I radically heal myself? Now I have the capacity to show up in relationship in a way more expansive way than trying to navigate those hurts and pains that are mine through the relationship instead of just through myself.
This is this is a big part of the second sequence in the Golden Path. It's called the Venus sequence. And and what I kept hearing as you were sharing was like when we move through this stuff on our own, or like, we focus on our stuff, our part of it. instead of like placing the blame out here or trying to fix things out here. Like we're focusing on us, even though it looks like we're focusing on a singular
Mm-hmm.
self. Like we're focusing on the relationship actually, but we're cleaning up our side of it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And just imagine like if we're all focused on cleaning up our side of the street or, like our area, our field, like if we're all focused on that, then that is the clears the way for intimacy and the transparency to come to life. Because it's just like I just see it as like cleaning and clearing and getting stuff out of the way that stands between true us, that stands between that union. This, I think I mentioned last week, the 29 is in the ring of union. This 59 is in the ring of union. And we also recently explored the other two keys, which were the 4 and the 7 in Leo. And we also had the eclipse, the solar eclipse in the 4. So there's a real emphasis like this shift to the individual and to the self is in service to that unification. But it's like the unification can't realize until like each of the parts of it have cleared the way and are ready to kind of like plug into it, you know? Um, So I absolutely love this. It's why I basically, since I came to the Gene Keys, have been doing the Venus sequence. I mean, I don't know if there's been a year in the last 6-ish, 7 years that I haven't been doing, I haven't done the Venus sequence. So I can just say from my own personal experience, I highly recommend. Each time you come to it, there's something new, and you can do it, you can do it in your own way. If you know that they have the sequence on there and everything. So
I can't hear you, Cori.
sorry, something happened there. I might have hit something. Um, all right. But anyways, it's a powerful way to just approach life is to take like radical responsibility for everything that's coming up in our lives as a gift. And I kind of touched on this at the beginning, the triggers, the challenges, the stuff that we would rather not deal with. That's the stuff that we're actually being invited to take responsibility for and clean up. Um, and again, when we do, the thing that we're really after, the thing why we don't want to deal with that stuff, the freedom on the other side of it is there, but it's like it's asking us to face um to face the trauma, to face the difficulties, to face the things that we have pushed to the corners or stuffed in the closet. It's kind of funny because I was just thinking recently, every time like Virgo season starts and I see, some of the pop astrology and like reductive little posts around like clean out your closet and organize your life, get your shit together or whatever. But I think at a certain level, Virgo is about that, but it's at an energetic level, not like actually, I mean, you can actually go clean out your closet for sure. But I think it's speaking more to like the emotional closet,
Mm-hmm.
the the trauma closet, um, the shadow, it's looking at those parts that we would rather keep hidden, and bringing them to the surface, getting honest about it, and just moving with it in this way that again, we're no longer the victim of it, but a creator that gets to do something about it.
Mhm. You know, Peter Crone speaks about this a lot. He calls himself a freedom architect. And he speaks a lot to this idea of the freedom that we seek is the freedom from our own suffering, that we, in many cases create our own suffering. And yet there's this other part of us that's out here looking for freedom of that everywhere else except for where we can actually find it in our suffering. And one of the things he says that I love is it didn't happen any other way because it didn't. Like, so the years and suffering that we spend contemplating why did this happen? Why did I have this upbringing? Why did my parents say money doesn't grow on trees over and over again? Like, why? This stupid shit that we just contemplate over and over again. Why? Without, like, instead of just finding that, just that divine acceptance that, we've talked about this in relation to even death, you know, here. I'm pretty sure we've talked about that on the podcast that, and the grief that we feel. It brings me to Hardly, of course, because I'm talking about it. And I think it's a good reminder for me because I like my mind does, go over and over like did I do the right things with her? Did I, like, in her last year of life, when she, like, became an old lady, did I care for her the way she needed to be cared for? Did was the timing of everything right? And I think it's a beautiful reminder for me to just release that contemplation, to just invite in that acceptance of I accept it in all the ways that it happened. And still I can be sad sometimes. I can still look for her sometimes. um and speaking of death in general, like, I mean, Harley lived a long, beautiful life, and there are people in this world whose lives end a lot sooner than we thought they might, right? People who were seemingly healthy, have a sudden heart attack, or like the triathlete that you never thought anything would happen to has a widowmaker heart attack, like, or a kid, gets cancer or into an accident that takes their life. It can be easy to sit and wonder why. And I really believe that everything happens in its own perfect timing. And I think that that can be a really difficult conversation to have with somebody who's grieving, who hasn't found that acceptance. Um, and I always hold space that they'll see it on the other side. They'll see it eventually. Um, but grief or sadness or anger or shame, like whatever the emotion is that we're holding on to, that we're seeking freedom from, why do we why do we hold on to that trauma for as long as we do? Like why do we create that suffering? Why is it so hard to move on in the human condition from suffering? Is that in our DNA somewhere? Is it, um, maybe it's the collective wound that we're all here to shed light on, to heal, to choose differently, um, to find true freedom for that so that we can move into honestly the next evolution, which could be another wound for us to heal, another layer of that to heal as humans. But right now, the suffering is like suffering and fear are the big, I think you could probably even um, dwindle it down all to suffering. It's all suffering in some sort of way. So the only way to find that freedom is to lean in, to look within and not worry about anyone else but what's inside. Because nobody, I mean, having just navigated, I haven't, I've had loss in my life. Like I've lost grandparents and stuff, but nothing felt to me the way it did with Harley. And having just navigated that, I know that it's a space that's very difficult to respond to how I'm actually feeling, and there's nothing anyone can really say to make it better. It's only me. I am the only one that sits with that. And to be frank, it's almost like I would rather I would rather that energy that people exert towards grief that another person is having, I would rather that be spent not doing that. Like actually focus on themselves and what's going on and attending to their life. Not that it's not nice to hear from people, but in the same breath, like don't take up that space.
I went on this, I might have talked about it here before, but I went on this retreat once, and the focus was kind of like peace, um, yeah, inner peace, world peace, just like accessing the field of peace. And one of the invitations that really stood out to me was like never deny another their suffering. Because again, like our suffering holds the gifts, it holds like the diamond, the pearl, whatever we want to call it. Um, and it's something that even if we can't, this is just what I truly believe in my own experience. So I'm speaking to my own experience, but I truly believe that I can't remember, but like I chose to work with a certain energy, a certain part of the collective wound. And this is something that is explored in that Venus sequence in the Gene Keys. But that we all kind of, in a way, again, it's hard for the mind to comprehend how this exactly happened. But in a way, we chose to come in and to work with a certain part of the collective wound. And I love it in the Gene Keys because he says, the wound is just like the DNA wound in a way that it's like shortened, essentially. Like, you know how they talk a lot about how we don't really access like a large portion of our genetic material and of our DNA. And they might label it as like junk DNA or something. But the idea here is that it's like wound up, and that as we begin to work with the collective wound, it's that unwinding that happens. It's happening when we turn to face this stuff and feel this stuff. I think you made a really good um, point around like I have to move through all of those emotions. That's what the clearing out is. It's not like oh, just get rid of it, just bypass it. It's like the stuff that we haven't wanted to we haven't wanted to look at because there's something uncomfortable there that we're afraid to feel. And so it's this invitation to really like feel it all, and move through the waves of grief and move through the pain. Um, but to let it move, like to not keep it wound up, to not keep it like tightened and tucked in this way that it can't wrestle free, essentially. I'm really doing some miming right now, but yeah, that's what I feel is like as we really start to look at everything from this way of like, okay, it's here for me. Let me invite it in and let me unwrap it, unravel it, unwind it. And like, again, as we free that energy, we ourselves like are freeing energy within ourselves, within our genetic material. And that's too why I truly believe that healing happens across time, across a lineage, you know, um, because you're not just opening that up for yourself, even if it feels like you are just you, you know. This is again the ring of union. So it's like doing the inner work, um, but for greater unification. Yeah, I think I already said that. So I'll stop.
Yeah, it makes me think about, the first 30-ish years of my life where I was conditioned to keep my emotions at bay. It was too much. They were, you know, if you're a strong woman, um, or you want to be a strong leader, you keep your emotions intact. And like as you were talking of the unwinding, I was thinking about that unleashing, like just this primal unleashing of emotions. And I always, the first year that I was working with a therapist, maybe even year and a half ish that I was working with a therapist, I cried a lot. And the world around me responded, to me being a quote unquote strong female leader energy. They responded to me like, I think therapy is making things worse for you. I think you're going in the opposite direction. Like, what's happening, right? And yet I've come to this place of expressing emotions now that I lean into them. Not always. There are things like some of my deeper wounds that I still, will shy away from that expression, and they kind of build up a little bit then before I actually examine them. But a lot of times as I'm experiencing emotional energy, I'm in the moment with it. And what it allows me to do, especially when I give myself the time and space to feel it, is I can come out of it very quickly. I don't I don't have to just be in it repeatedly. Even with like Harley, I had moments where I was just in the middle of cooking dinner and I would just stop in the middle of the kitchen and cry like a lot. And then I would come out of it and I would just resume what I was doing. And right, it wasn't that I needed to lock myself on the top of a mountain and cry for a year. That's not how it works. Like it doesn't have to work that way. There's no actually like prescribed way that it works, right? I mean, maybe if you're here to move like a lot of energy, maybe you are sitting on top of a mountain and releasing for a year. I don't know, right? But I, that is kind of what happened to me when I was in therapy for the first year. Like I was definitely releasing a lot. But in the beginning, when we were releasing all that stuff that's been pent up and tempered, when you actually just let the floodgates down, it's not really controllable. Like it is a little bit out of your realm, and you do have to kind of take the surrender leap and say, you know what, it's more important for me to release that than to live in the state of suffering that I was living in before. And once you do that, you know, the suffering, the pain, the anger, the shame, all of that gets to just move through in waves. Like it just pulses, in and out, and you get to witness it. It's not, it's no longer this part of you that's like you're afraid of losing yourself to, because you recognize it as energy that just wants to move. Um, that's the natural unwinding. And I think there is a pulse that, like, I think a pulse is maybe a good word for that. Like it does kind of come back, right? Like if that DNA, that wound, like you said, is unwound, now there's like more freedom to move throughout it. And so when something happens that, you know, triggers a little imprint in there, like you witness it and notice it, but then like there's all this space now for it to move. And it doesn't just get trapped in this little space because you've done the work to unwind it. Like, and that's what's on the other side. That's where the freedom is. And all I can do is continue to unravel those pieces as I come across them, right? And to notice the things, the patterns, and where am I suffering or experiencing dissonance more than I would like to be? How can I make space for that to flow a little more? Just a little. Doesn't have to be like sometimes when you get that necklace that knots up and it takes forever to unravel it, right? It doesn't have to be like a whole project. Like it can be a moment that you just let a little more through. Like when I went to the therapist and she taught me about anxiety and she said, just you have to let it, you have to feel it to heal it. You have to let it go. You can't close up and trap it back because that's what perpetuates it. That's what keeps you in this perpetual feeling of anxiety. So if you just acknowledge it, right? And I just did that. I slowly, and it was a process, right? Put my hand on my chest. I'm feeling anxiety right now, and I feel my mind want to say, okay, like, I don't like the way that feels. I want it to go away. I want it, like, let's just make it stop. And you can. That's how strong we are. We can make it stop. We can stop any of these emotions. But the thing is, we don't really stop them. We don't really free ourselves from them. We actually trap ourselves. And so if I can just let myself feel it a moment longer than I did before, now I create that space, I unwind it a little more. And the more space we create, the easier it is for those waves, those pulses to move through us and give us the true freedom that we experience, that we want. It's not that we're going to be free from emotions the rest of our life. We just get to change the way that we navigate around them.
This is a really big thing that I see with emotions. Since I have an open emotional center, one of the things that I've noticed is again, emotions actually are not personal. It's just we attach them to a personal story or situation or experience, and um, yeah, create this kind of relationship with them. The 55 is the dilemma there he talks about is external validation. So it's almost like there becomes this like attachment to our identity, like the ego attachment to it. But really emotions they operate like waves and they are collective and they move through all of us. And if we can kind of like when we take a step back and observe them moving through, like just create, like we were talking about, that little bit of space between us and that wave. I, it's just amazing to see, like you were saying before, how kind of quickly they move when we're not hanging on to them, when we're not containing them, when we're not trying to figure them out or creating this whole narrative around them. They're actually here to move and they want to move. And we all again experience them. We have our unique stories. And yes, they kind of catalyze the waves, right? Like they're the thing that maybe sparks the wave into the movement, but they're not the wave. And yeah, so I've found it so helpful in my experience to create space and to move into um, more of an observer role that does um, make things feel less personal to the story that a part of me has wanted to attach to it. And I think that again is like where the freedom starts to open up, right? Like if we can kind of look at the story we've been telling and see where we're like repeating something that does not feel good to us. Well, we get to choose to stop. Like we're the creator of our story. And I think that this is where that like 55 really speaks. It's like we have a choice in all of this, not necessarily of what's happened, but how we choose to move with it and to allow it to move and to respond to it, um, and to let it go too. Once we've moved through the emotions. But I think it's I also grew up really conditioned to like I just was felt so disconnected from emotional energy. I had, again, being in an open emotional, it was very confusing to me. Like a lot of times I would be feeling emotions and I wouldn't understand where are these coming from, like constantly trying to analyze why is this happening? For me, I was obviously picking up on a lot of like emotional energy in the field. And of course, you know, wouldn't know exactly where that's coming from. Um, but like, yeah, I was just so conditioned to not um, swing too far one way or the other and to kind of stuff it in, stuff it down. But there's something so freeing about just feeling it in the moment and taking the space to feel it. That too is like been huge for me. Like taking physical space away to move through it is also like helping the energy move because then it's not bouncing kind of all around and getting like tangled here and tangled there. And then it becomes this thing, that I just see it in certain interactions, like that it can amplify and kind of grow. Um, if we start trying to figure it out in the moment. So I'll stop there.
I'm watching Fantastic Beasts right now. I can't believe I've never seen it. But I just finished the second one and there's I'm not gonna remember the name of it. Like I think it starts with like OCT maybe, but the matter, the like black um matter that the one dude turns into, and it becomes very emotional and he starts like attacking the cities and stuff like it. That's the emotional energy. Like that's what I'm thinking about. And anyways, it just took me to that movie for a second. But as we wrap up here, I want to pull on one thread in that space because I think this is our invitation. Um, a lot of this work, this stuff that Cori was alluding to us healing or attending to earlier, I I think a lot of people get stuck in I don't know where to start. Like there's so much of it I don't really know where to start. And what I want to offer here is that I think the answer is space. And you don't have to know what to do. You just have to be able to be willing to give yourself space, to be in that feeling, to not know what to do, right? Like if you're in a space right now where you're like, I am so overwhelmed, I don't even know which way where to look. I'm stuck, I'm paralyzed, I don't know what move to make. Okay. Let's just say you're in that space. Now you sit and give yourself space to just be in that feeling. And I feel like the more that we actually just let ourselves be in that feeling, it moves, right? It gets out of the way so that we can see. This again, I've spoken to like we can't access our intuition from a space of emotion or reaction because there's so much noise going on. We can't sense it there, right? It gets clouded by that noise. This is the same concept, right? We can just sit in, I don't know what to do right now. Or I am so mad at you, Cori. I I don't even know what to say to you, right? Then I can just sit in my anger for a moment. It's just the space. And I don't think it needs to be complicated. It doesn't need to be this, I'm going to sit for an hour in this energy and figure out what to do. No, like it can be just a moment. And I think as we gather those moments, we create more space. This is what opened my intuition to me. Just creating space from my mind moving a million miles an hour, trying to figure everything out, trying to solve everything. Space is the answer today, you
I
know.
love it. Let it be, just be. There's nothing to do but be. This is my anthem. So, yes. Amen.
Yeah. All right, Cori, do you have anything else on your heart you would like to share to feel complete today?
I feel good. I feel great. I feel wonderful.
Yeah.
How about
As
you?
always, these conversations feel like a just a long continuation of contemplation. And we weave through some topics we've discussed before, we go deeper on them, we bring up, oh, this reminded me of that again, right? It just, those contemplations just come into my space, into my awareness again. It's still process. It's just a note that it's still processing. There's still something here. But as I mean, I know I've said before, I don't walk away and think intentionally about this stuff. I show up in these conversations with Cori, and that's why this has been such a beautiful process. And I mean, I even, yeah, like today I brought up the collective wound. I had no idea that Cori was going to say, like, the Gene Keys talks about a collective wound. I had no idea that that was even going to happen. But like, I get to just show up and feel what I feel. And then it feels really cool actually when, Cori says, I'm feeling this too right now, or, and this is my perspective. And I, all I can do really is just allow that opening to let those contemplations, those energies, those emotions move and process in their own timing. I don't have to figure anything out. I just have to be willing to allow the space for them to be. So, thank you all for being here with us once again, and we would love to hear from you what you're experiencing, what your thoughts are on this. What are you feeling with relationships right now, with freedom, with suffering, death? Like, what are your perspectives? I would love to hear them. We would love to incorporate them into our conversations. So, thank you for your time, for your energy, for sharing, for having these conversations with us or with others, as it matters right now. The more that we do that, the more seeds we plant, the bigger web we weave through the world. That this energy, this is the new era, this is changing, things are changing. There's an invitation to be different. You can find freedom. All of those things get to be seeds in the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will see you soon.